Saudi Arabia is on a charm offensive at the World Economic Forum in Davos to get the world to move on from the shocking and brutal murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi and focus on striking business deals. Khashoggi was killed by Saudi agents as he visited his country's consulate in Turkey. But this week, Riyadh is scoring victories in Davos, one of them managing to secure top Western businessmen to participate in a panel debate on next steps for Saudi Arabia. Our senior reporter, Annika Larsen, joins us live from Davos. Annika, so Saudi Arabia doing lots of wheeling and dealing. Are we hearing anything about the murder?
Well, remember the revulsion that spread around the world at Khashoggi's murder. It was condemned so widely, but all that seems to have somewhat evaporated at the World Economic Forum, with the Swiss Prime Minister saying it's all time that we moved on from the terrible event, and the Saudi Foreign Minister saying, Finance Minister, Mohammed Al-Jadaan, saying that what happened was terribly sad, but really there needs to be the outcome of an investigation before we can actually condemn the prince himself, and the perpetrators have been found and that they are likely to be prosecuted. So the world seems happy with that, as long as there is oil flowing from the taps.
Oh yeah, money always talks, doesn't it? And oil. No surprise, I guess, because, you know, Donald Trump has already forgiven Saudi Arabia and suggested that the US can't afford to take action against them.
That's right. And remember, he contradicted the CIA saying it's very likely that the murder was ordered by the Crown Prince. And then Trump saying, no, not at all. They only said it could have been a remote possibility, but he insists that he trusts the Saudi prince, Prince Mohammed, and he's quite confident that he was not instrumental in ordering the murder. So I suppose the rest of the world can take some kind of lead from Donald Trump, and is happy to strike oil deals, sit on very, very important high-level panels here at Davos, and it's the biggest delegation that the Saudis have ever sent to the World Economic Forum.
Okay, and I'm hearing that at least 2 of Saudi Arabia's state companies will be strategic partners there, so it's obviously going well for them, and more business coming South Africa's way too.
Right, well, Saudi data saying that the new foreign direct licenses have doubled since last year, so clearly Khashoggi's murder hasn't had too much of an impact on business there. They've come back to normal. Nobody can afford to boycott or impose sanctions on Saudi Arabia. They're just too powerful. They just have oil that the whole world needs. Aramco and SABIC, they've joined in partnership with the World Economic Forum for 2019, as you said, and a $10 billion deal signed last year with Saudi Arabia and South Africa to launch petroleum and renewable energy contracts in the next few years. So no more condemnation seemingly, and Saudi Arabia getting all the big bucks as before. Only one critic is Bill Browder. If you remember, he was a strong critic of Vladimir Putin, investment banker who's got a very influential voice here at the World Economic Forum, saying he finds it disgraceful that the world continues to carry on doing business with Saudi Arabia despite the murder in the consulate.
Man with scruples. Annika Larsen, thank you. Now, South Africa will also be ramping up its business concerns with Saudi Arabia. President Cyril Ramaphosa is on his own charm offensive in Davos.
People who are here in Davos have said, we respect you for your honesty, we respect you for your courage to be able to acknowledge this. We had always been seeing it, and we were alarmed that South Africa had gotten to where it was. But thank you for saying it, because now we can rebuild our confidence and trust in you as the leadership of South Africa, as well as the country as a whole. So it has been a good process of acknowledging where we've been and also being bold enough to say we are moving forward.
Well, many European and African leaders are in Davos. Some of them say they're willing to turn their focus and work with Democratic Republic of Congo. Felix Tshisekedi was declared a legitimate winner of the December 30 polls, despite the heavily disputed outcome. And today, he was inaugurated as the new president of DRC. Some are, however, refusing to congratulate him. Tshisekedi narrowly defeated opposition leader Martin Fayulu in the December election. Fayulu says he actually won with more than 60% of the vote. Last week, the European Union expressed its doubts about the credibility of those official results. Both the EU and the AU, African Union, say they've taken note of the Constitutional Court's decision, but didn't explicitly say they recognized Tshisekedi as the winner. Well, now that his inauguration is a done deal, will there be peace and prosperity in DRC? We have in the studio, Analyst Jane Bwasa and Prince Abenge of the Africa Solidarity Network. Very warm welcome to both of you. Mr. Bwasa.
Thank you, John.
Are you celebrating?
Yes, I'm celebrating in a sense, just for the mere fact that, as you might know, since 1960, we have not had a peaceful transfer of power. We have had presidents assassinated, and we have had those who went into exile, the likes of Mobutu. So today, it's a way of celebrating that we have made strides toward the right direction, which is democracy in the European sense. But whether we are independent or democratic, that's another question.
Because there's hesitancy, isn't it, to congratulate him. So yes, democratic steps, but, you know, an unpalatable election.
Yeah, let's say it's a catch-22, you know. There was a desperation of seeing a peaceful handover of power. And in the meantime, we had the sloppiest electoral process Africa has ever seen. So it is a catch-22, as I said it. You know, people are not very comfortable of the way the election was hosted, and the mishmash from the CENI Electoral Commission. You know, it didn't give a high credibility to the whole electoral process. But in the meantime, it's the first time for the DRC. At all levels, people wanted to see a peaceful handover of power, be it at national level, regional level, or international level, at least, regardless the content. The form was there. I must say, you two are
a lot more positive than when I last spoke to both of you. I mean, what are those claims that Joseph Kabila was, you know, playing deals, orchestrating deals in order to get Tshisekedi into power so that he remains a political player, a strong player?
Well, Jane, we might know that, and this is very important that we have those issues, because Congo is a pivotal country in terms of its mineral resources, but not only its mineral resources. We can also tap into agriculture or any other aspect like the climate change. I've said it here a countless number of times. And there's so many people that are pulling the string in the back, either from Kabila person as such, who's, we congratulate him, because in terms of the central region of Africa, is the very first person who's going to bequeath power to his successor. The likes
just wonder how much power he's going to bequeath.
Well, let's say that there are many things that are going to evolve, because that country is our country, that's the Democratic Republic of Congo. Felix Tshisekedi is a Congolese. I can't underline that much because it's very important. We know that the country was under occupation, and people don't know that. But today, we have a Congolese who is at the helm of the country, and we hope that is going to bring the hope and the unity that we are all aiming at.
Are you ready to go home? Do you think many in the diaspora will be heading home?
Maybe I'm late. People have already gone home. I saw on TV, I got phone calls, I saw on social media, people, they're already back home. It depends on what you are doing here so that you can plan to go home, and it doesn't come in a blink of an eye. You have to plan for it properly.
There's still a lot of work to be done. I mean, yes. What's the projection now for those going home? What do they hope to see?
The projection is, I think people are almost talking the same language of rebuilding the country. You know, after 18 years of having a token leader like Joseph Kabila, the Congolese institutions are very weak. And there is a lot of things to do, a lot of work to do, so that the Congo can come back to the rails and function normally. So no one is going to reinvent the wheel. So the main concern is how to get the country back to the rails so that we can have a proper democracy, a proper society, and a proper education.
And what about the troublemakers who remain in the country? And I'm not going to lump them with the opposition. I'm just wondering, these are two separate topics. Where does this leave the opposition going forward now? And what about those who don't want to see this as the final outcome?
Well, I would just remind people that I think in 1980, I'll take it as a paradigm to a football match when Maradona had to throw a ball with his hand, and it was the goal, and they won the World Cup. So there's something that is in the whole that the disgruntled people, they must understand that there's a time where we fight. There's a time for war. We've been fighting for the past 60 years. We haven't developed our country. Maybe we could go through the roots of what South Africa did in 1990s and get the trial and reconciliation and whatever sort of things. We know that we need reparation of what has been done to the Congolese people, rapes, plundering of the country, whether economic or anything, and then bring the transfer of skills from South Africa to the Congo so that we could yield the country toward a path of development, which the people are awaiting. The work has just started.
I mean, but potentially incredibly exciting considering how rich the country is. As you say, a lot of work to be done. I mean, what about the neighbours? They're, pretty divided about who supports who and who's enthusiastic about the results and not. What do you think the country needs to do to draw in the neighbours who could cause problems?
I think there are 2 or 3 things that have to be taken account so that you can define or describe the behavior of our neighbours. The first one can be the foreign policies, and the second one, geopolitical stakes. So, the Congo currently is very weak in terms of institutions, and the country becomes a hostage of other countries' foreign policies or other countries' political or geopolitical stakes. So that's where you have our neighbors playing the role of one or two. We are like coming back to the context of Cold War between the West and China, Russia on the other side. So you have countries that are very close, our neighbors that are very close to China, to Russia, and you have countries, neighbors that are very close to the US, European Union, and France, or let's say the West. So it is dictating the agenda on how to deal with the DRC. That's it.
All right. Well, I wish you both the best of luck, and thank you for talking
Jane.
us through what seems to be a celebration.
Oh, we celebrate.
Bwasa and Prince Abenge. Thank you.
Thank you.
A drama in the White House. President Donald Trump says he will be making his State of the Union address in the near future, but House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says she hopes the shutdown will be ended first. Our correspondent Simon Marks is in Washington, D.C. with the latest. What's going on here, Simon?
Well, a standoff, of course, between President Trump and his Democratic opponents, with the president having shut the government down over the refusal of the Democrats to give him $5 billion to build that wall that he wants to build along the U.S. border with Mexico. You remember the one that he always used to say the Mexican government would pay for, until, of course, successive Mexican governments said they would not. So Donald Trump's date to make the State of the Union address, the annual speech that presidents always make on the floor of the House of Representatives, is now on hold after President Trump was completely outmaneuvered yesterday here by Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, the most powerful elected Democrat in Washington, a veteran of the corridors of power here. President Trump said I'm coming to the House of Representatives to make this speech anyway, whether you like it or not. And she then pointed out that he couldn't possibly do that because she's got the power to invite him, and there has to be a vote in Congress to allow him to enter the building to make the speech, to enter the floor of the House of Representatives. So it is off until this government shutdown ends. We are in day 34 of this government shutdown now. 800,000 federal workers either being told to stay home without pay or being told to work without pay, and they simply don't know at this point when this will end or when their next pay packet will come.
Simon, I'm just going to read Nancy Pelosi's tweet. It just shows you what a sort of feisty lady she is. She said, Mr. President, I hope by saying near future, that State of the Union address, you mean you will support the House-passed package to end the shutdown that the Senate will vote on tomorrow. Please accept this proposal so we can reopen government, repay our federal workers, and then negotiate our differences. So, Simon, obviously, you know, real two sides here, and I can imagine Donald Trump just hates to be shown up on Twitter. How are the politics playing out here?
Well, it's stalemate. I mean, there are going to be two votes in the Senate in the next few hours on two separate measures. One, a Republican measure, which would give him the money to build the wall. The other, a Democrat measure, which would deny him the money to build the wall. There are not the 60 votes in the Senate for either of those votes to go through, for either of those measures to be passed. And this is now really an enormous game of chicken. Who is going to blink first? And the Democrats are looking at the fact that President Trump yesterday capitulated on his insistence that he was going to make the State of the Union address as a hint that perhaps they've got him in a corner. And one of the reasons why politically they think they've got him in a corner is because in the latest poll, 71% of the American people said it wasn't worth shutting the government down in order to try and secure the funding for this border wall. The Democrats say if they give in to Donald Trump on this issue, he can shut the government down again and again and again on any other pet issue that he wants to get funded or get through. So there's no political reason for the Democrats to give him a win here.
And veering off the topic slightly, what's the response there to US diplomats being kicked out of Venezuela, and what is the US going to do about it?
Well, the US, as you know, has formally recognized as interim president Juan Guaido, the opposition leader. The US is now not alone. Canada, the Organization of American States, a host of other countries in the Americas have recognized the opposition leader as the interim president. Nicolas Maduro remains in charge of the government in Caracas. There have been violent protests, large protests over the course of the last 24 hours, with the death toll of more than a dozen, and I think really all eyes now are on the Venezuelan military. Are they going to stand by Nicolas Maduro and allow him to remain in power, or has this action by the United States and by many other countries communicated to the military inside Venezuela that he no longer has legitimacy? There are very nervous and tense days ahead in Caracas and in the rest of the country.
I can imagine. Simon Marks, thank you. Business News is next with a look at the global market's attitude towards Bitcoin, also the painful wait in Gaza for money that Israel is reluctant to release.